Hey there my little ice cream sundaes. Today I wanted to share a few thoughts with you about my depression journey and self-love, and using self-love to help me with my depressive episodes, talking a little bit about my thoughts and feelings on medication and stuff. So let's get into it. There are a couple of videos that are already available to watch on the channel that I will link for you down below that may interest you if this particular topic is something that interests you and you want to hear more from me on it. One of the videos is about my depression, my journey with depression, my thoughts and feelings on it, and what kinds of things I've learned that can help me. The other one is from Self-Love September 2017, and it's again about my depression, my journey, my mental health issues. I certainly don't go into the entire timeline of everything that I've experienced mental health wise, but I do tend to place a lot of focus on the depression when I'm talking about my mental health now and thinking about the journey that I've taken, because a lot of the other issues that I experienced when I was younger, I've gotten under control now. I don't tend to experience those things anymore. So I just want to be clear for the record that I have had experiences as well with dissociation, with psychosis, and also with eating problems. I don't tend to place, like I said, as much focus on those things in terms of the work that I do and the content that I put out there. Depression is something that I still very much struggle with now, and so I think that's why I tend to place the most emphasis on that. As I've mentioned previously on the channel when I've talked about depression, the first time that I consciously remember being very depressed was when I was about 10 years old. And I remember wanting to just fill my pockets full of stones and walk into the reservoir, you know. I remember experiencing really dark feelings at night time when my siblings were asleep, and just really sitting in those feelings and being steeped in those feelings. I remember the first experiences of talking to my mum about you know, depression, you know, in terms of its genetic context, the fact that other people in the family have experienced depression and mental health problems, and kind of fitting the pieces together in my mind and recognizing that my mother definitely, you know, suffers from low moods as well, definitely has depressive episodes too. People have definitely asked me, as I've been on my journey doing YouTube and everything, if I've ever taken antidepressants, what was my experience with antidepressants. People have told me that they are on their antidepressants and they want to come off of them, or indeed that their doctor is advising them for their depression or advising them for their low moods, for the symptoms they're experiencing, whether it's depression or not, and they're really not sure how to respond. They don't know whether or not taking antidepressants would be in alignment with their spiritual journey and what have you. So I thought I would really want to talk about that in the context of this video, and I want to start by saying that I definitely think it can be unfortunate, unrealistic, and sometimes dangerous to adopt this attitude that it's got to be one or the other, that you've either got to be on antidepressants, doing your thing with antidepressants, or you've got to be using spiritual activities and spiritual practice and going the natural, quote unquote, natural way. I think that this can be really unrealistic, and it creates this sense that people need to choose one pathway or another, which doesn't make any sense at all, because people need to have as many different tools available to them as possible. Now, to me, I do believe that antidepressants are clearly useful and clearly necessary for some people. I definitely don't see them as only being this terrible evil that we need to rid the world of. I think that they can help people to manage their emotions when they're in a very unstable place. I think that they can help to bring people back to a sense of stability and balance and calmness when it's necessary. For a lot of people, antidepressants do help them to process the therapy that they're having. Sometimes those kinds of medications can really help a person to just sit with the therapy, be open and responsive to the therapy, etc. You know, and people have definitely said that antidepressants for them have stopped them from killing themselves, from harming themselves, etc. And there's no way that I'm going to sit there and argue until I'm blue in the face with somebody else's experiences. I think we need to accept that people are so fucking nuanced, they're so complicated, there's so much different stuff going on there for each individual person. I don't want to be that person that says it's a one-size-fits-all thing, it's a blanket thing, and antidepressants can't have anything to do with it. I don't want to be the person that says that. I definitely believe that it's clear that antidepressants are overprescribed. I think that's clear. I think that's abundantly clear, to be honest. And I definitely think also that people are prescribed antidepressants to numb pain that is absolutely just a natural consequence of being alive. And I will talk about that a little bit later. In terms of my experience with antidepressants, As some of you may know from previous videos on the channel and following my journey for a long time and stuff, when I was 17 I tried to take my own life, and after that I had a lot of therapy on the NHS, the National Health Service, and a few discussions with my doctor back and forth as well about the possibility of being on antidepressants. I never pushed to be on antidepressants, but I think after you've tried to take your own life by slitting your own wrists in the bathtub, you're kind of open to what people are saying to you in terms of what they think you need. I think for me, I didn't really feel like I had any right to say that I didn't need antidepressants, because I think, you know, from a rational person's perspective, it was probably clear that I did, and that I'd been suffering from depression for years. So I was placed onto a prescription for citalopram when I was 18, and I didn't come off of the citalopram until I was about 21. So I had a few years there of experiences being on antidepressants. And I will say that for me, it was a short-term stabilising effect that I'm quite convinced that I needed in order to be able to go about the daily business of living, be reasonably functional, and then eventually to start working and hold down a job. I also found that there were a lot of unpleasant side effects, and you know, for instance, it was pretty much nigh on impossible to biologically cry, which was really odd, because I knew that crying was something I probably needed more than anything else, more than a lot of other things. I needed to cry, and I actually kind of couldn't biologically cry, which was odd. I lost my libido completely, so, you know, my relationship went down the shitter at a certain point because of that, or partly because of that. I had complete loss of libido, I had some issues with sleeping pattern, and I also had some weird little tics from being on citalopram as well. Like, for me, and this is not something I've found from talking to anybody else who was ever on it actually, but for me there was this weird thing where I constantly felt like my tongue was stuck to the roof of my mouth, and I would do this all the time. I would go... It's like a weird tic from just feeling like my tongue was stuck to the roof of my mouth. Ever so weird, I really can't explain it. Antidepressants don't make you feel happy, they don't make you feel connected, they don't make you feel over the moon, they're not empathogens, they're mood stabilizers, you know? So essentially they just allow you to level yourself out, they allow you to not feel so many of the extreme negative emotions, but what most people will say to you about antidepressants is that they also cut off a lot of the time the experience of those very intense high level emotions as well. So you're kind of like rocking steady, if you will, for a while, and that's really what the antidepressants are for. They are to prevent suicide, they are to prevent self-harm, they're to help somebody feel stable enough to access therapy, use talking therapy if that's what's happening, hold down a job, you know, have relationships with people and feel relatively safe in doing so without feeling like they are going to succumb to these more intense negative emotions. I can't say that I had any majorly negative experiences on the citalopram, but I knew when I was on it at certain points that it wasn't the thing that was getting the job done for me. And in fact, the mainstream therapy that I was experiencing, you know, the therapist that I was being sent to by the NHS, that also really wasn't quite hitting the spot. The thing about therapy and the medication and the doctor's visits was that those things made me feel seen. They made me feel like I wasn't slipping through the net. They made me feel like I had someone I could call if the worst came to the worst and I really felt like I wanted to kill myself again. But in terms of helping me to make steady progress forward, I don't think that they were helping me to do that necessarily. So I don't want to say that they didn't give me any help at all. Like I said, they did make me feel like at least I was being seen to and the problems were being addressed. But I didn't feel like the citalopram nor a lot of the mainstream therapy that I got was really the thing that clinched it for me. For me, the deal breaker, the game changer, I suppose you could say, was the spiritual stuff and the creative stuff. Honestly, it really was. However, there are lots of people that say that spirituality saved them, who have a really big problem with antidepressants. They have a problem with anyone using antidepressants, and they'll be very dogmatic about people not using them and the importance of people chucking them down the toilet, throwing them in the bin, you know, don't use them. There are other people who've had very negative experiences with antidepressants, who had a terrible time on antidepressants, who found that they had quite an adverse effect and made the symptoms worse, or just made them numb out so much that maybe they lost their friendships, they couldn't conduct themselves in a relationship anymore, they isolated themselves socially, etc. And those people as well have some very rigid, very forthright opinions about antidepressants. That's not my bag at all. I have definitely known people who have told me that they feel that their life was saved by taking an antidepressant. I have known people who have said that it leveled them out, it got them back onto, a reasonably sort of neutral pathway where they weren't being plagued by these intense, overwhelming negative feelings anymore. They felt they could access therapy, hold down a job, and do what they had to do. Some of those people that have told me that the antidepressants were positive and important for them are still on them now. And some other people are not on them now, but recognise that they were important for an interim period when things were really bad, when they really needed that extra help, that extra assistance, that biochemical assistance, if you will. Who the fuck would I be to say, no, I'm not listening to that, la 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 la, I don't believe you, I don't believe you, you really shouldn't be on the antidepressants, or you never should have been on the antidepressants. You know, to me, that is just being so dogmatic and rigid about my own perspective and believing that everybody is walking the exact same path I'm walking in life, and that is just not right. And the other thing that I don't like about the rhetoric, or a lot of the rhetoric that goes on in the spiritual and the self-development communities regarding antidepressants, is that there's so many different like memes I've seen and articles I've seen over the years that have made it seem as though it's a straight up choice between being on antidepressants or going to nature, going to deity, making a collage or whatever. And I don't like that, you know. I think that that's dangerous, and I think it's narrow, and I think it's taking people's opportunities to feel better and get the job done and cutting those opportunities in half and saying, look, you're either column A or column B. You can't be both. You can't be both spiritual and, you know, be a user of antidepressants. Antidepressants somehow are not spiritual. They're numbing you out, man. They're making you into a zombie. You know, I've seen that meme that does the rounds every now and again that talks about nature being a person's therapy. And, I don't need drugs. Nature is my therapy. Or nature is my antidepressant. That's a big one. Nature is my antidepressant. You know what? You can go out into nature and you can absorb the energies of nature, you can feel aligned with nature, you can be reminded by your experiences out in the natural world that you are a part of the natural world, and still you may need mood stabilizing drugs. You know, both of them can work together. They can be complementary medicines. I definitely believe without any shadow of a doubt that antidepressants are overprescribed in today's society. I think that it is a solid gold fact that people are taking antidepressants to numb themselves of pain, which is actually just a natural consequence of being alive and being a human being on this planet. And I'll give you an example of that. I had a relationship a few years ago in my mid-20s, and that relationship ended after about 18 months. After the relationship ended, the guy that I had been seeing went to the doctor and just said, you know, I'm really heartbroken. This was my first major relationship. I can't believe it's over. I'm having trouble sleeping and I'm just feeling really, really shit. And the doctor gave him a sedative to help him with his sleep and an antidepressant to help him with his moods. This is on the first visit. This wasn't after a number of visits. This wasn't after the doctor had recommended maybe drinking some herbal tea to remedy the sleep and, you know, go outside into nature, pick up the phone to some friends, read a good book. No, right off the bat, this guy was being prescribed a sedative and an antidepressant. And the bottom line is he was heartbroken. He was heartbroken. Our relationship ended. He felt a great deal for me. He wasn't expecting it to end. I didn't feel the same way anymore. And a few weeks later, whilst I was having, you know, a supportive chat with him and saying, like, you know, how are things with you? And he said, well, the doctor's put me on, he told me the names of the drugs, and I used to be a healthcare advisor that worked in a dispensary. So immediately I knew what these drugs were and the strength of these drugs. And I was stunned. I was stunned. And this was not by any means the last time that I was told such a story of somebody being on something, or somebody's parent or sibling or friend or partner being on something, and me thinking, yeah, but they're bereaved, or they're heartbroken, or they've just been through a massive loss. They're supposed to feel sad. That's part of it. That's not depression. That's not something that we should be using antidepressants for. And it just freaked me out. And I do think that there is that tendency to overprescribe. It's like an instant fix. I think if somebody comes to the doctor's office and said, I'm heartbroken, something has befallen me that I didn't expect, that it's difficult to understand, my response to that as a doctor, I would fucking hope, would not be to say, okay, let's get you on an antidepressant and a sedative. I mean, that really does seem like going for the absolute most extreme remedy first, without considering all of these other things, all of these other tools, all of these other practical things that you should be doing if you're bereaved or heartbroken. And I think one of those practical things that one should be doing if they are heartbroken, if they are bereaved, if they are suffering a loss, is to sit with it. It's not abnormal to be in pain when something crappy has happened. We should not be medicating that. We should be sitting with it. So I definitely do hold that belief. Let me just get that right out there. I do hold that belief. But I also think that it's too easy to just put some blanket ideological ban on all antidepressants and say, no, we should not be using anything like that. It's too easy to say that. And I think it comes from a place of privilege. It comes from a place of either not understanding what it's like to have depression, or never having known somebody who has really benefited from taking an antidepressant and having that as part of their routine. I think that if you really listen to people and you appreciate their stories and you hear where they're coming from, it's easy to see that antidepressants are appropriate in some circumstances. Are they appropriate to the degree that I think a lot of doctors are prescribing them? No, I fucking don't. No, I don't. And there are some situations like that one that I've just described with an ex-partner of mine where I have just I've been so shocked and aghast by the fact that antidepressants and sedatives were prescribed that I've almost, internally laughed, like, what the fuck? Is that where we're going now? Where anytime somebody experiences crappy feelings as the result of, drum roll please, something crappy happening, we're just going to numb that person out. We're just going to try and stop them from experiencing the extremity of that. And that worries me. And now, bear in mind, I was not in the doctor's office when my ex-partner actually went in there and had this appointment. He may well have said things to the doctor that he didn't say to me that made the doctor feel like there was a need for that kind of extreme medical solution. But to me, I just feel like that kind of thing goes on far too much. These things are prescribed far too liberally. There are people that are on antidepressants because they're getting a divorce, because a parent has died. And I just think to myself, these things befall us in life and they're supposed to hurt. That is absolutely a part of the natural order. So it does worry me when I see things being prescribed for those reasons. What really worries me about it as well is that I see people being prescribed things for those kinds of reasons, that kind of temporary extreme mood shaker, like bereavement, like losing a job, like your marriage breaking down. But I also don't see anything else being suggested. Very often you've got no therapy going along with that. You have got no suggestions for anything spiritual, emotionally elevating, community-based, all of these other things that shamanically, spiritually, we know are the way forward. We know that those things help. I feel like a lot of people are walking around taking medications that are altering their mindset, altering their chemistry, with very little instruction as to what to do besides that, and with very little feeling that they are working towards getting their lives back on track in any other way. And that scares me and worries me as well. In my very early 20s, I went to a therapy session, and the therapist that I had been seeing told me that it was going to be the last session that I was going to have with her, and she was going to be cutting my therapy short. By that point, I'd been doing meditation for about a year and a half, 2 years, and I felt like that was really having an effect. I was allowing myself to slowly come back towards some of these spiritual practices that I'd left behind me a long time ago, and I was realizing that those things were positive and helpful as well. Basically, the therapist told me that she felt that I couldn't access the therapy that I was having. She told me that she didn't feel like she was really getting to the heart of what the issue was for me. She told me that instead what she was going to do was cease therapy completely and double the amount of antidepressants I was taking every day. So instead of taking 20 milligrams of citalopram daily, I would be taking 40 milligrams of citalopram daily. And I realised at that point that something was very wrong. That was not right. That struck me as so irresponsible. It just seemed like she was saying, I can't handle it. I've tried to figure out what's wrong with you. I've tried to find the bottom line of what's going on with you, and I can't, so we're just going to dose you up. We're going to fully go to the maximum amount that we can go. And then you just won't feel anything much, you know, you'll just sort of amble along. And let's see how you do with that. I just thought to myself, this is sick and it's irresponsible and it's making me feel uncared for. It just freaked me out completely. I went home that night and I had a little bit of a word with myself about what I was doing with the mainstream therapy, with the medication and all of those things, and I just decided to chuck all of my antidepressants down the toilet and try and do it another way. I sat down and I wrote a big long list of all of the things that I felt had helped me and aided me, and those things included meditation, making art, writing poetry, going on walks along the canal, conversations with certain people that I'd come to find were really enriching, all kinds of different stuff like that, exercising, doing Irish dance, which I did Irish dance for a number of years growing up, step dancing, and I realised that just getting back into that, just in the kitchen, was really good for me. I just wrote down all the different ways I could think of that were helpful to me in my hours of need, and I decided I was going to do it with that, because I no longer felt like I could trust the medical profession. I no longer felt like I could trust the mainstream machine of mental health aid to really look after me. I felt like, you know, with the 20 milligrams of citalopram alone, I was already pretty numbed out, and I was experiencing difficulties with processing emotions, which is kind of part of what the drug is supposed to do. It's supposed to make it so that you feel like there's a thick pane of glass between you and a lot of your more intense emotions. I just thought, this woman wants to put me up to 40 milligrams and just cut me loose. There's something really wrong with that. And I decided, no, I don't feel safe. This is not right. And would I recommend that you cut off your antidepressants straight away and stop taking them immediately? That's never recommended. What you're supposed to do is go to your GP or go to your therapist and say, I've had these thoughts about cutting down. And, you know, unless they really feel like they need to argue against that, unless they really feel like you're in danger, they should be helping you to cut down in a sensible way that prevents you from getting headaches and other physical symptoms and mental health symptoms that people do experience from cutting down cold turkey, you know, literally taking the medication out of their life. That can be dangerous, especially if you've been on the medication for a long time or you've been on a fairly high dose. So no, I don't recommend just flushing all your antidepressants down the toilet, but if you have a feeling in your heart of hearts that the medications are not helping, the therapies are not helping, it's okay for you to acknowledge that. And it's also okay for you to recognise that you might be relying upon medication and therapy to such an extent that you're forgetting that there's this whole other bag of tricks, there's this whole other fucking shamanic prescription that you can be giving to yourself. You can decide that there are these things that you can do that will heal you, that will make you feel better, that will make you feel more plugged in, more connected, stronger, more grounded, more centered. You can have all of those things, and you don't need to give up the drugs to do that. You know, forget these fucking memes that say, oh, nature is my antidepressant. If you need antidepressants, or if you feel like at the moment it's not going to be possible for you to consider cutting down or coming off, think about what you can add into the proceedings. Make sure that your prescription is holistic, because the biomedical community, the mainstream medical community, they're not going to do that for you. It's few and far between the doctors that are going to take you aside and say, you know, if you try meditation, or if you work on this, or if you look into this spiritual concept, it's not going to happen. I mean, unless you live in the very, very deep south or something and you have the odd doctor that tries to evangelize to you and tell you to read the Bible. Like, I've actually heard that. I know that does happen. But, you know, so my point that I'm trying to make really is, don't forget that your prescription can be holistic and you are responsible for making up the rest of it. It's very unlikely that a doctor from the mainstream biomedical community or a mainstream therapist is going to actually aid you in that. If they do, fucking amazing, that's great. But I suppose what I'm making this video for is to say to you, if you're having therapy and you're having medication, there's so much more you can still add to that collection of tools. There's so much more padding you can put around it. There's so much more that you can build it up. There's so many more layers to it. And even when I was on the antidepressants, I was meditating. I was looking into meditation and mindfulness techniques. I was really getting back to sitting in front of a reflection space in my room, lighting candles. Honestly, most of the time, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to feel like a witch again. I knew it was helpful, I knew it was healthy for me. So it wasn't just a case of flinging the medications away and being cut off from therapy and that was it. I was steadily building up my own collection of tools that were there for me when the medication and the therapy stopped. And I think that was really one of the most important things for me on my journey. Don't let anyone convince you of something that you are not sure of. If someone's trying to convince you that you need to come off the medication, but you're feeling like that isn't a possibility for you right now, or you're not sure how you feel, lean into how you feel. The other person doesn't have your biochemistry. The other person may be really operating from a very rigid, very personalised perspective where they're not really thinking about what's going on for you. And that can be harmful to you if you take that advice without putting it through your own filter. I am pretty sure that I'm never going to take antidepressants again. I would never actually say never, but I feel fairly certain that it's not on the cards for me. It's not something that I'm going to be considering again. I definitely feel like I have now a very, very strong set of psycho-spiritual tools to help me to cope with the depressive episodes when they come up. I definitely think there's a lot of things that I've learned and figured out from, you know, going on this journey myself that have been helpful for me. Like, for instance, I think that we're not talking enough about the external, environmental, cultural, financial factors. I don't think we're talking about any of those factors enough. I think people feel very much like depression is just a very individual thing. And I think that makes people put a lot of pressure on themselves to heal. And it makes people put a lot of pressure on themselves to understand why they feel a certain way about something, or why they keep going into depressive moods over and over again. You know, but the truth is that a lot of people fall into cycles of depression throughout their lives because of environmental factors. Those things exacerbate depression so much. I do not believe that they cause depression necessarily. The reason I don't believe that is because I've been on top of the world in my life and still ended up getting caught up in a depressive episode. You know, to me, depression is something that is an unexplained sadness. It is a melancholy that keeps coming back to you and back to you, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what's going on, really. Or that's how it's been for me anyway. And I feel like the word depression is thrown around pretty liberally these days. A lot of people say they're depressed when what they mean is that they're just sad. But when I say that I suffer from depression, I really mean that anything could be going on in my life and it would still be, you know, a moment for depression to come up. It's a dodgy wiring, I think, for me sometimes, because I can be on top of the world in so many respects and everything can be going right for me, and then literally my mental health will just take a turn for the worst, and there really is no rhyme or reason. However, I do definitely think that environmental factors have a huge part to play in the degree to which people can handle their depression, the degree to which people can manage their low moods, even if they don't have depression. And we don't talk about those things. We don't talk about the racism that exists in society, the bigotry that exists in society. We don't talk about the various things that women have to go through just because they're women, just by virtue of the fact that they're women. You know, we don't talk about the massive financial disparity going on between one household and another. We don't talk about the devastating effects of our behaviour and our decisions on the planet, and how watching Mother Earth struggle like that and feeling helpless to stop it is a pretty fucking depressing experience, you know. And a lot of people do fall into apathy, they do fall into melancholia, and if they already have a propensity towards depression, that's just further going to be exacerbated, it's further going to be entrenched, you know. I think a lot of people don't think about the nature of capitalist society and consumerist society therein, and the fact that there is definitely a link between the fact that we are convinced that we need to strive for certain things or own certain material things to be happy, and how that is a false promise, that is a waster's fucking dream ticket. And you know, waking up to that each time can cause incredibly low moods. I figured out that something really positive for me when I'm experiencing depression is to feel purposeful. I don't necessarily have to know what the meaning of my life is or what my ultimate purpose is as an individual. Like, why am I here on this planet? I think that's way too much and way too hyperinflated and way too centered on me as well. Most of the time, if I'm going through a depressive episode, it's more so about what action I can take to feel that I had a purpose in that moment. And a lot more than just helping me, it's about helping others. It's about figuring out what I can do to help somebody else. And that really puts me back into alignment with my power. It centers me. It makes me feel better. It makes me feel more connected to the world around me and less as though everything is just hopelessness and despair. There's a lot of dialogue in the self-development community about the importance of boundaries, about the importance of making sure that we don't give too much, making sure that we don't give and give and give and give until there's nothing to give and until we're completely depleted in our own energy stores. And I've spoken about that time upon time on this channel, and I think it is an important dialogue, but there is this whole other section of dialogue that I think we don't have enough, and I think it's a dialogue I started to have with myself when I was in my 20s and now in my 30s, about the importance of just taking action to do something decent on behalf of Mother Earth, on behalf of somebody else, and realizing that that makes me feel like I'm plugged into the cycle again. It makes me feel like I can be effectual. When I feel like I can be effectual in some way, it really stops me from going down a very, very dark road of feeling like everything is hopelessness and I am hopelessness and everything is despair and I can't do anything and I'm small and I'm helpless and I'm nothing. You know, it stops me from going down that road. To be effectual is wondrous, and to be effectual on behalf of someone else, particularly someone who has less than you or finds themselves in a different kind of bind to you, a different kind of difficult life experience to you, it just feels right. It feels good. It feels like something I should be doing. It's basically figuring out what my beliefs are and taking action to align myself with those beliefs, you know. It's purpose through principles. It's taking action to try to heal whatever has been upsetting for me, even in the very smallest of ways. If you've realised that your depression or your low moods tend to be exacerbated by cultural factors, societal factors, factors to do with who you are, I really would recommend trying to connect with other people who have similar issues, or at least reading some things or watching some things from people who are able to relate to you that have those issues. And it can really arm you with different ideas of things that you can do to make your situation better. It can just make you feel less isolated. It can make you feel affirmed in your feelings. I think that can be really important when we're at a really low ebb. I always like to try asking myself what the younger version of me wants to do. What does she want to do with her time? What would she like to spend some time doing? And I make a date with that younger version of me. And I don't mean I run around in the street completely infantilizing myself, acting like a little girl or anything. I just mean that there's parts of me inside that wanted to spend all day, every damn day, just like reading Narnia books under the covers, or, you know, making a really shiny picture with glitter, and you know, I feel like I owe it to my inner child to give myself that. Whenever I'm feeling really fucking blue for a really sustained period, that's normally most when I feel like I have to pick up the phone to my inner child and say, hey, is there something you need that you're not getting that I can help you with? Exercise is a really useful thing for people that suffer with depression. It's so important to get that endorphin spike. It's really important to feel that release. You can work a lot of emotions out through sweating. Sweating sometimes to me is another form of crying. You know, really let that sink in. If that feels really alien to you and you're like, what the fuck, Kellyanne? Honestly, sweating can be another form of crying. It's that emotion release. It's that dump. And it just feels, oh, so fucking juicy. And you know, one of the most annoying things about my depression is that when I'm depressed, I don't want to work out. And I know when I'm depressed that I need to work out to feel a bit better. Even if it's only going to be a teeny weeny little bit better, I know it would help. But I don't want to. It's what I want to do least in the world sometimes when I'm feeling really blue. So that can be really frustrating. And I don't always win that fight. I don't always manage to convince myself to work out. And that's the truth of it. I try to talk to myself. I try to make it different for myself. You know, if I don't want to go to the gym, I'll do a little home workout. I'll make the workout really small. I'll try and do anything that I can to convince myself that it's time to put a little bit of physical activity in the schedule, because I do know that it's helpful for me. But isn't it annoying how it's one of the major forms of resistance a lot of the time for people that are going through depression? Like, as much as you know that you need that endorphin spike and you need to sweat, at the same time, it's the hardest thing to convince yourself to do. Honestly, it's so frustrating. Spiritual practice is key for me. It's absolutely key for me, and it has been for years. And I feel like for me, being a witch and doing my thing spiritually is not something that I see as being an eventual cure. It's not something that I see as being a preventative measure that's going to stop a depressive episode from coming along. I can't afford to see it that way, because that's actually unrealistic, and it doesn't really correlate with what's actually going on with me. To me, the way that I see it is that the depression is going to come. It's going to come whether I like it or not. It's going to come whether I meditate or not. It's going to come whether I do spellcraft or not. I feel like that's the healthier way for me to think of it. But I definitely do see spirituality as being so helpful for me in getting through it. It's just incredible. It's a thing that's always there for me. I lean into the arms of the cosmic mother. I really take that guidance. I listen to that insight. I draw cards. I chant. I meditate. I sit in sacred space with candles around me, and I just let myself be held. I let myself be held by the majesty of everything it means to be a witch. And even if I can't do anything, even if I haven't got the energy or the motivation to do anything at my altar, I sit at my altar. I'm there. I just be there. I just be there with the candles burning, and that's it. Sometimes that is all that is needed, to be honest, to create that shift. Sometimes even just striking a match and lighting a candle gives me something that I cannot describe, that is so nurturing. And if I'm talking right now and you're feeling what I mean, I'm going to direct you to a video I made a while ago about witching through your shit, and I'll leave that down below as well. I am sat at my altar in that video talking about the importance of being able to sit at the altar and do the hard stuff and not feel like everything's got to be this big cabaret show, not feel like everything's got to be a performance, not feel like everything's got to be about doing something, achieving something, trying something. You know what? You can just fucking sit there. And if you feel like your reflection space or your book of shadows or wherever you go, whatever you look at to feel plugged in, if you feel like that does make you feel plugged in and it makes you feel good, you don't need to do anything necessarily. Don't worry about it. Don't feel like you have to do anything. Just sit and just be. Just allow yourself to be there. Who's checking? Who's counting? Who's coming for you if you don't do a ritual or don't do a spell? No one's fucking coming for you. It's your time, and you can do with it as you wish. Another thing that's been really important to me is being able to speak openly and honestly to the people in my life about the fact that I'm going through a depressive episode. I no longer hide it away. I no longer hide it away. For me, it has not been helpful to try to put on a brave face, ignore it, cope with it in private, but try to maintain a different persona in public. I won't do that. If I need to break plans because I'm depressed, I'm going to do that. If somebody rings that I'm close to, that I interact with regularly, and they say, "How are you?" I say, "I'm going through a depressive episode right now. It's a fucking nightmare." I don't expect anyone else to take responsibility for it. I don't want anyone else to be accountable for it. But I want people to know now. And that is a big part of what I do to support myself, because I don't want any stigma around depression for me or for anyone else. I want people to know that yes, I do go through it, and I want to be there for people in my life who are going through it. And I also don't want to feel like I'm carrying this burden alone, and if I needed to reach out, I wouldn't be able to. There'd be nothing to grab onto, because no one is aware of the depth of the problem, the scope of the problem, the nature of the problem. And I don't like that feeling. I don't like to feel like I'm drifting alone. Anyone who wants to be in my life in a serious way, in a significant way, is going to have to accept that I get depressed, and that when I get depressed, I'm going to say I'm depressed. I'm going to say I'm dealing with something right now. Obviously, some people do get very concerned when you vocalise the fact that you're depressed, which is funny, because for me, you should be much more worried about me if I don't say anything. If I'm keeping it all stuffed down inside and I'm convincing myself that I can't talk to anyone or I mustn't talk to anyone, that's usually where the more insidious issues tend to arise. If I'm being open about it, if I'm saying, like, look, I'm depressed right now, I don't want you to worry, but I'm really going through it, this is what I'm trying, and I'll check in with you in a few days. If I'm saying that, it means that I'm dealing with it, I'm coping with it, I'm trying everything I've got in my toolkit, and it also means I'm comfortable to come to you if I need you. The fact that I've told you I'm going through it right now means I'm comfortable to ring you up and say I need help. Obviously, it's really important to me that I stress to my loved ones that they do not need to worry about me you know, making a decision to end my life or to self-harm. They don't need to worry about me going to a very bad place, because I'm being open about it. I'm letting the right people know that there are some issues and I'm trying to deal with those issues. To me, that's been really important and valuable, so I thought I'd just put that out there in case anyone else needs to hear it right now. Another thing that I really want to mention that's helped me so much with my own depression is knowing that sometimes tough love is self-love. And I know that there is quite a big sort of negative feeling around the term tough love for a multitude of different reasons. I think a lot of parents told us that they were giving us tough love when they were really abusing us. I know that was my experience on a few occasions. You know, so I think tough love has a bitter, acrid taste for people, and they're just like, I don't like that phrase, tough love. But I've kind of reworked it in my head. And, you know, I now feel like I know what tough love means. I know the difference between abusing myself and tough loving myself, and sometimes I need tough love. And there's kind of 3 sacred ways in which I tough love myself, you know. One is to think to myself, am I shirking my accountability? Am I trying to blame others? Am I trying to look to an external situation and say, this is the reason I feel like this is the reason I can't shake myself out of it, this is the reason I can't deal with it? Do I need to bring the responsibility back to me to do what I can to deal with it? So that's a really important one. The other thing that I tend to really focus on when I'm trying to be tough loving with myself is to ask myself, am I really as incapable as I think I am? Or is that just a safe story that I'm telling myself? Am I really down as deep as I think I am? Is it honestly true that I can't do anything for myself, that I can't even do 10 push-ups right now? Is that honestly the fucking case? Or is that just a safe story? And that is a way that I tough love myself too. A third way that I tough love myself is to really use tough loving words of power, affirmations that remind me that I shouldn't BS myself, that procrastination only makes it worse, and that every new minute of the day is a chance to make a different decision, start again, decide that yes, I'm going to take control, I'm going to do something to help myself. You know, all of these things are tough love to me, when I could just mollycoddle myself and stay safe and hide away and not change anything, not do anything. Tough loving myself is like saying, look, where is your accountability? Where is your agency? Very important. And I'm going to leave another video down below that helps you with that, with thinking about where your agency is right now, what kind of action you can take. And that's a favourite video of mine. I really love that video, so I'm going to leave that down below as well. There's so much more that I could say about depression, how I've been managing to deal with it without taking antidepressants over time, all the different things that I've figured out. But I think I'm just going to leave you with one more thing for today, and that is that I learned at a certain point on my journey that buying myself things is not going to help the situation. It is a temporary high, and it is not going to go the distance for me with my depression. I really would recommend that if you find that you're treating your depression or your low moods, your difficult emotions with buying, that you really try and cut that habit. You know, the very next time you're looking at something online that you really don't need, that you weren't even shopping for originally, or that really doesn't fit your budget right now, stop. Just stop for a millisecond and think, is this what I want to be doing with my life? Is this what I want to do with my money? Genuinely, how long is this going to make me feel better for? Let's actually look at it. Let's be honest with ourselves about it. I think that that will really help. Making purchases that are not sensible, that are downright unjustifiable, that don't even make any fucking sense, that are like novelty purchases, or that you never even looked at before in your life, and suddenly you're adding to cart and you're buying things. That is just going to make you feel worse. It's going to make you feel more out of control. So I definitely think that if you know that you're convincing yourself you just need a little retail therapy, but actually there's a very toxic undertone to that, it's time to get that out on the table. It's time to deal with it. You know, I really am glad that I made that distinction between enjoying a little bit of shopping because I have the money and I feel like I've done something to earn it, or it feels like a good time to do it and a sensible time to do it. That side of the equation, which is lovely, and then this other shitty, sickening side of the spectrum where I'm buying something to stuff my pain down, I'm buying things to numb. the pain I'm going through. I really would recommend examining that. If you have issues with that, really try and find your way through it. It only takes for you to one time make a good decision for yourself when it comes to buying, when it comes to spending. Honestly, if you can make a decision for yourself just one time that is healthy, that is beneficial to you, even if you feel like, oh, but I really do want that deck, I really do want those shoes, I really do want these books, I really do. If you can just one time say to yourself, I wasn't even looking for this, it's not on the list of things I need, it's only going to make me feel happy for a couple of days, let me just shut this screen or walk out of this shop. If you can do that, I guarantee you will be showing yourself the extent of your power, and that is nothing if not a sincerely positive thing. Honey bunnies, thank you so much for listening to some of my thoughts and ideas about depression and dealing with depression. I really hope this has been helpful. I would love to learn about some of your experiences and your thoughts and feelings down below. Much love until the next video. Blessed be. Mwah.